I'll be talking about harnessing and proper size harnesses.
And I'm Kayla Mosher. I'm one of the superintendents for Marion County.
So first thing I want to say about if you're going to harness a horse, you have to have, like a saddle, you have to have the right sized harness. In minis, they come in smaller and bigger. They call it A and B. Poppy here is B. She's a little taller than an A size. The difference is A is 34 and under, and a B is up to 38 inches, over 34 and up to 38 inches. So let's get Poppy started with her harness. So the first thing I'm going to put on is the breast collar, and these are called the traces or tugs. This is how the cart moves forward. So this goes in front of her shoulders here. Thank you.
Of course.
It fastens over the shoulder, and you need to make sure that you have it at the right height. So what I'm going to show is, let's turn her around a little bit. So what you want is it to come in over the point of the shoulder, but not too high on her neck. Over the point of the shoulder, because we don't want that rubbing on that. And below the neck, below the esophagus, because we don't want to impede her breathing. So you use this shoulder strap to make sure it's the correct distance. There are other types of things that you fasten to your tugs or your traces, but we're just going to talk about this one. Okay, now this is called the saddle. And when you're harnessing, you want to make sure your saddle is not as far forward as perhaps the girth on a riding saddle would be, because you don't want it to pinch in here. And then this is called the back strap. This is your brakes, and it's called the breeching. And when you have the cart all fastened, you want the breeching to be kind of in the widest part of their behind. If it's a girl horse, you don't want to put it up where it's going to affect their private area, or they're not going to be happy. So I'm going to go ahead and fasten the saddle. It does not need to be as tight as a riding saddle, but you don't want it hanging around loose either. This is called a wrap strap. When we get the cart, you'll see how we do that. It also could be called an overgirth, depending on your setup. This is the crooper. It goes under the tail. When you put it on, you want to make sure that you get all the hairs. You don't want hairs like sticking like this, because that could irritate them. And the last thing you want to do is having them be all irritated while you're driving around and, you know. Okay, so you don't want it so it's too tight or too loose. Once again, this is about right here. So that's the crooper. This is the back strap. This is the breeching. And like I said, it was the brakes. So when the horse is going backwards or going down a hill, the weight of the cart goes against this. And so their whole weight can help hold the cart and the weight of the driver back. Okay, so now we have the bridle. Driving horses almost always have what's called blinkers or winkers. The purpose for that is to keep their mind forward and not to the side. People a lot of times think that driving is so much safer. You're just sitting in a cart. But if the horse takes off and you fall out of the cart, and they were spooked because they saw something, it can be not so good. Been there, done that. Okay, so it's like putting on a bridle for any kind of horse. So I'm just going to tuck my finger in the side. She opens her mouth very easily. Over the ears. If you're driving a mini as opposed to a larger horse, what you might find is that there's just not as much room. So sometimes it's a little hard to get the crown piece over the ears, but in her case, it wasn't bad. Now, this is the throat latch. With a throat latch on a driving horse, you want it to be fairly snug. because you do not want the bridle coming off. Bridles coming off are really bad when you're driving, because when you're driving, all you have really is your bit, your voice, and your whip. That's all. If you're riding, you have your weight and your body and legs and so forth. But if you're driving, you don't. So you want to really be sure that bit stays in that mouth. So I'm going to see how easy it is to pull this bridle off. See how easy it is to pull that bridle off? So another thing that you can do is get something called a gullet strap that runs, I'm going to tighten that actually, because there's a hole over here. It runs from the throat latch to your cabazon, and that helps so you can't pull that bridle off. I had a friend whose horse ran into something, pony, and pulled its bridle off, and she was left with no control whatsoever and had an accident. And she spent time in the ICU, so you really want to make sure. Now I'm going to try with it. It's a little harder now that I tightened that throat latch. But a gullet strap that goes from here to here is helpful. And you can get, I've used curb straps. I've used little dog collars. You can actually buy one online from harness companies. But that's just something that's an extra thing. And one other thing that people do is they make a braid right here, and they put a piece of yarn in the base of it, and they tie it to the crown piece. It's just extra security. Okay, so now that we have the reins are going to go through the turrets here. The turrets are these. Yeah. This harness is brass. If you're going to be fancy about how you look, if you have a brass harness, you want to have brass metal on your cart. The other thing with brass is that if you're going to show, you want to shine it so it's all pretty. Stainless is a little easier that way. So now I'm going to double check the girth on her. It's still like I want it. Not too tight, but not too loose. We'll check it again when she's hitched to the cart. It might be a little loose, but we'll check it again. One thing you want to make sure of, and this is not the best saddle this way, but you want to make sure there's not weight on the backbone. And so this saddle has a little tiny spot here to help take the weight off. But you can get saddles that have more room. You can get pads that will help. I actually have a saddle that has Velcro pads under the saddle so I can move them. It's very cool, so that I can keep that so it does not rub on the backbone. And good, I see you've got your helmet on. When I'm going to hitch a horse up, I take the traces and I stick them across here so that they're ready to go. On a lot of these minis, it works well to put the trace under your shaft loop, also sometimes known as a tug, so let's just get confusing. But I like shaft loop because it says what it is. And the reason I would put the traces underneath this is it just helps hold it. It shouldn't dangle anyway, but you just want to keep everything out of their feet, basically. Okay, let's take her to the cart.
What's the best way? Put her against a fence or just have her?
Nope, I would just have the best way is to have a header, especially if you don't know the pony. I often hitch without a header, but I also have horses that are very experienced. If I'm in a new location, I really prefer to have a header because sometimes they get a little.
Now it's the header is the person who's standing at the front of the horse to make sure she doesn't move forward.
Yeah.
It's better to bring the cart up and over. Mm-hmm. You don't want to come straight in because there's some delicate things in this region and you don't want to get your horse kind of goosed.
You don't want to poke him in the behind, essentially. No poking. Okay, so when the cart is on, what you want is you want the shafts to be fairly level. And you don't want this to come too much. You really want it to be at the point of the shoulder if it's straight shafts like this. There's other kinds of shafts that aren't necessarily that way, but in this kind, and this is the most common thing you'll see, So you want it about right there. So that's good. And what else was I going to say? I can't remember. So you want it kind of level. And how that's going to look is going to be different. Depending on how tall your wheels are, the whole shaft may be up, say, to here. But basically, you want the shaft fairly level, because if it's not, the seat's not going to be level. And sometimes you'll change that a little bit depending. But then the next thing I'm going to do here, once they're in the cart, the first thing I want to do, which hole does she use on this? The short.
I haven't kitched this.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we'll find out. Might be that one. So what I did, this is a sword single tree, also known as a whiffle tree. And single tree because just one horse. If you were driving a pair, there'd be a double tree. This is a single tree. And with this type, you slide it over. And this, we need a new leather thong here. And the leather thong comes over the top of that so that it can't come off. And this is not long enough, and it's a little bit. Shoestrings can work for that. It's a little cracked, so it's not necessarily as sturdy as one would want it. This one looks better. This is more the length you want. So we just slide that down there. There are other ways, lots of other ways to secure it. One thing I will point out is this has to be very strong. This is the bolt that goes through the single tree. I replace mine about once a year, and I get the strongest I can get, which is, I think, grade 8 bolts, and make sure that that's strong, because if that breaks, it's not good. Now, this cart wouldn't be too bad because it's got limiters on it, and that would keep the single tree from dropping. Some carts, the single tree is below, and it would drop on the ground. It would hit them in their legs. It would be all kinds of horrible. And remember, what's taking the weight of you in the cart is this whole apparatus here. So this bolt has to hold whatever you weigh, plus whatever the cart weighs, plus some extra, because things happen. But these are limiters here. I think they're dog collars, and that is perfectly fine. They keep the single tree from going too far forward and back. You want it to move, because as the horse is moving, its shoulders are moving. So you want the single tree to move, but you don't want it to move too much, because then things get all kittywampus in the harness and bad things can happen. Okay, so that was the first thing. I always do the traces first. Now, this is the hold back strap for the breeching. Once again, this is the back strap, this is the hip strap, this is the crupper, breeching, hold back strap. So the hold back strap is going to go down, and there's all different ways of doing this. A lot of our carts have, we have it so we don't have to wrap it every time because, we're lazy. So you wrap it around. I think in this case, I'm not going to be able to. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll wrap it around, get this out of the way so you can see better. I'll wrap it around once or twice or 3 times and then come back under. But in this case, the strap isn't going to be long enough to do that. And that's okay. But I'll just come back. And I'll put it right there because that looks about right. And once again, I have put the trace in between here. The reason I do that is, once again, to keep the trace from hanging down too low. It shouldn't anyway if it's all adjusted right, but weird things happen. On one of my harnesses, I have what's called a trace carrier. It's separate from this. It just hangs down from here, and you put the trace through that. So now with the breeching, excuse me, you got fastened over there?
What hole do you have it on, 2?
I have it on 2, yeah. You want the breeching set so that it's tight enough to do what you need it to do. And so what I want to do is I want to put her in what I call draft. In other words, the traces are snug. And then I want to put my hand back here. For her size, for a bigger horse, you'd want to be able to put your whole 4 fingers in here. And I can almost get them in there. For a small mini, that's about right. So it's not going to be pushing against her while she's moving, not rubbing too much. But when we go to stop or back or go down a hill, it'll be in gear. So what you can see is, I can only push the cart this far forward, and I can only pull it this far backward. And that keeps the shafts from going too far forward and poking her in the neck. There's a lot of good things about that. I want to say tidy, but that's not right. Because basically you want the traces to be snug enough that when they move forward, it's not like 1001, 1002 before they start pulling the weight of the cart. That's confusing to them. You tell them go, and they go, and then a second or two later, it's like, oh my gosh, there's all this weight behind me. And you want this snug enough so that when you ask them to back, or you're going down a hill, it's not a long distance until, they don't, if you're going down a hill, you don't want the cart to go vroom until all of a sudden it hits them. You want them to be able to carry that weight kind of from the beginning, and not all of a sudden. So then we have on this harness what's called a wrap strap. The wrap straps hold the shafts down. If you don't hold the shafts down, this is what can happen. And that's not good. You can be sitting in the cart and you lean back if you don't have your wrap straps or an overgirth of some type. And you sit back, you can fall backwards out of the cart. I mean, if you let go of that, you can, and we didn't have that, it would. Yes, I had a young lady friend who was in 4-H, and she was borrowing my mini back before I knew what not to do. And she took her grandmother for a ride. And they had a little problem that way. Okay, how many did you want?
I went one because you went one.
Okay, yeah. And what I'd like to do is I'd like
to the French.
Yeah, I'd like to have this forward and back.
Oh, in front of it?
Uh-huh.
Not in it?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And the reason, you can come over here and see, this is what's called the footman loop, and that's what you put your breeching strap through, your holdback straps. What I was saying was she had this behind this, and that sort of seems to make sense. However, if you had to unhitch in a hurry, it would be very confusing.
So you do want to put it through, right? Yeah. Okay.
So this needs to be in front of.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep. And, people do things in different ways and they get away with it. And, it's kind of like, how many times I've actually needed the seatbelt in my car? Well, once this year so far, but not for many years before then. And I may have never needed again. It all depends on Hoover engine, how often. But it's the same thing with horses. You want to make sure that things are set up to stack the odds in your favor. Okay, so I put one in front and one behind.
And you went through the loop first?
No, you don't go through the loop at all.
You're putting it in the front.
Yeah, right. Okay. From underneath. So what I did was I came from underneath, then I'm going up like that. Yep. And then I'm going to take it down. And then I'm going to take it behind the shaft loop.
Okay.
And then we'll see if that's going to work. Go ahead and see if you can put yours in the buckle there.
I might do another twist. How about you?
I might not.
Oh.
You might have more.
I might have more slack.
Because it's how I hang my harness. I think it's
Okay, so you don't have you can't buckle it there?
It just seems like another loop would be suitable.
Yeah, and it's fine. You don't actually have to have. So you did 3 loops, so I'll do 3 loops.
Okay.
And then that should work.
Symmetry is key.
It doesn't matter. You just want a couple of loops at least at least one, so that your cart is not going to fall backwards. As previously described, and Grandma went out backwards. Not good. Okay, I don't have enough room to do 3. Are you on the last pull there?
Yeah, I'm on the only. Oh, I guess I could loosen it.
Yeah.
Let me see.
This is like I say, the overgirth, and you want to make sure that it's tight enough. And the thing is, actually, I can do 2 on this side, and you can do 3 on that side. And this is one of those things where symmetry doesn't really matter.
Okay. How much more do you need?
I don't need any more.
Okay, perfect. We'll just go ahead and put on that hole.
Okay, so now I'm checking the girth. Now the girth seems to be a little loose. So I'm going to tighten the girth up one hole and see how that works. A lot of times, as most horse people know, horses will plump up just a little bit when they're being girthed. If they do it too much, you might want to check for ulcers. Okay, so now she is all hitched up. She's got her breast collar, neck strap, the saddle, the wrap straps are connected to the overgirth, her girth under that. This is back strap, breeching hangers, breeching, crooper, pulled back straps for the breeching. Now we seem to have more room back there, but that's okay. And you can see now it seems like the breeching has got more room because when you hitch up, a lot of times you're going to find out things like that happen. Everything affects everything else, but it's not too much. The only time I might tighten that would be as if I was going to be going downhill or if it seemed to affect her in backing. Okay. So now if somebody else wants to come head her.
Tradja.
So go ahead.
What should a driver be wearing while they're herding?
Well, clothes.
Well, yes.
I recommend if for any driving competition that you wear for competition, but like now when it's a little warm, short sleeves, but long sleeves are good, long pants are good. It depends on the type of competition you're doing, but you should always wear a helmet. And gloves are good too. I wear gloves just because it gives me a little more grip, but also use them for competition, so I just get used to it. So, okay. So when she gets in the cart, she needs to make sure she holds onto the reins enough that she can hold the horse back if the horse decides to go forward. Okay, now we're going to talk about length of whip. A lot of people are hesitant about using a whip because it sounds so brutal. But like I said, when you're in the cart, you only have your voice, your whip, and your reins. And your voice can be very good and your reins can be very good, but every once in a while, you need to cue them like you would with your leg. And once in a very long time, you have to get a dog that's running after you. So I'm going to have you hold the whip like you would if you were driving. Okay, so we're going to talk about how long does the whip need to be. So if this is how your arms always are, sometimes people keep their elbows a little further. So what I want to do is put this down here, and the shaft of the whip should go to the saddle. The lash on the whip should go to the point of the shoulder. This lash is kind of long. Let's see if this one, and that's better than too short. Let's try this one. Okay, once again, the shaft of the whip. See, I might want it a little bit longer because if you relax your, but it's okay. It basically goes to the saddle. And this goes better. It's a little better size. It goes up to the point of the shoulder and a little beyond. Now, one thing I like to do is get this mane out from under the breast collar. The reins don't matter so much, but you don't want it pulling on her. And I always think that the helmet is the most important part. Having had a head injury, well, I wasn't exactly driving, but I had done something stupid and got out of the cart while I was driving. Well, it was pouring down rain in here, and I moved something across the gravel, and that made my horse decide she needed to go somewhere to secure safety, and I got a head injury. I wasn't in the cart. So helmets are really important. Now I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, this probably could be up just a little higher, but it's okay. And I'm going to put you in draft a little more, and actually I like it pretty well. Okay, so that is...
So we'll let her move a little bit and see how the fit feels after a couple paces around. And you're looking for leveledness?
I want the seat to be level.
You want the shafts to be level?
I want the shafts to be level. Sometimes because of the weight balance of the cart, you can't always do those exactly. But it should basically be level. And come back over here, Eden, and I'm going to talk about the weight. What's the most important thing with the weight in a cart? I'm not talking about the weight of the driver. I am talking about the amount of weight that is in the shafts. we want some weight in the shafts, because if you're driving and these are bouncing up and down too much, see how that's going to annoy your horse? But you don't want so much weight that they can't carry it. This is really pretty good right here. I can lift that up and I don't have a lot of weight. The proof of the pudding would be if she trotted and if they bounce too much. If they bounce too much, with this cart, there's not a lot you can do to adjust. There's really nothing you can do to adjust the balance in this cart. So if they bounce too much, you might want to tighten your overgirth. Now that I see it, that overgirth looks a little loose. You really don't want it flapping in the breeze like that. Okay, so that's her all harnessed up. And another thing I was going to point out is you want your blinkers so that they do not rub on the eyes. And this is pretty good here. Not even her eyelashes are rubbing on the eyes. Okay, I think we're done there. So do we want to look over here? Yeah. What I wanted to say also about fitting a harness is once you think you've got it fit, it's a good idea to check again after they've been out driving, because things will settle in. Things that you didn't think were loose or vice versa. There's another kind of brakes that, do you have it on this one? Do you have thimbles or you have breeching? Yeah. There's another kind of brakes that is sometimes used for show ring instead of breeching. It's called thimbles. In this case, the horse does not use a breeching. Thimbles are really only good for show ring when you're on the flat. So even if you want to come over here, I'll show them where the thimbles would go. And they fasten back to your saddle. And so when the horse is backing up, it's the saddle itself that, instead of the whole behind of the horse, that's taking the weight. And so they're really not good for going downhill. But it's actually a little leather or beta thimble that goes over this, and then there's a strap that goes and fastens back here. And depends on exactly where your shafts are. It could be to this, it could be to your saddle. And another thing that a lot of harnesses have that we don't tend to use here is an overcheck or a side check. Some shows say that you have to have a check. Because they're concerned that a horse might buck. However, in my experience, if a horse has been well enough trained, they're not going to buck unless something extreme happens, in which case your goose is cooked anyway. But an overcheck, comes from the bit, goes up to here, and then goes back here and hitches onto what we call the water hook. Why it's called a water hook? I don't know, but it's a water hook. Side checks come from the bit. They go up to these rings here, and then they go to the water hook. Basically, if you're going to use a check, I much prefer a side check. The one reason I can really see to use a check is if you've got a little kid in a cart with a pony that really likes to eat grass. They are allowed at a lower level, but they aren't allowed at the higher levels. But anyway, that's just something, a lot of show rings, they would not let you in without at least a side check.
What about the braiding? Why is it important to have the front braided?
Because it's cute. Because otherwise you have to work on pulling the hair, the forelock, underneath, like down under here. And so this way just keeps it tidy out of the way. Okay, so here we have Scout.
This is a different type of cart. So Eden has what's called the entry cart.
Okay, you want to
we shouldn't have this one.
So this is a totally different kind of tugs. In fact, these tugs are made so that you could have a kind of a shaft that has a closed end. Although that's not what this is, but that they're called quick release, so that if you had a closed end, all you have to do is do that and you're out. So I like them because I like, but once again, I like to stack odds in my favor. So he's got his collar. His collar's a little thicker, and that can be nice. This is called a Farts Martingale. And if the collar tends to move a lot, this is good. I would say that you always want this to be snug enough that they could not get their foot caught in it. Because if they can get their foot caught in it, bad things can happen. Like, they fall. Okay, so we're going to take the trace, and this cart has a trace holder on the actual shaft. So we'll take it through like that. But I think we want to take it through the way they have their breeching strap. It's already done up. So I'm going to take this and go through the breeching strap because it's just another way to keep things from flipping around and getting where you don't want them. We're going to go through that. And this is, once again, a different kind of single tree. This one does have limiters. This one has a different kind of hold, but it's pretty secure. The one thing I would say about this with this cart is this metal ring, it's for a different type of harnessing setup, which I really like, but this ring is going to rub. So what I would do is I would wrap that with, I don't know, something, a vet wrap maybe, to keep that from marring the finish there. So these, I'm not quite sure I like how that's. So this wrap strap has already been all done up, and it's made as clips, and it just clips on. And I think we actually want to move this shaft back a little. Well, let's have to release because these come up a little beyond the point of the shoulder here, and it's pulling your shaft loop forward. You want the shaft loop to be hanging down straight, if at all possible. Yeah. Now that looks better for the moment. Sometimes just a whole of difference, it makes a whole lot of difference. There we go. Now, one thing, this is a buckle, and what I was going to say is you don't want to put this so that presses into your horse. That could be considered. So, a person might want to straighten out those straps, which I won't do right now, but you really don't want anything poking them unnecessarily. These straps are done a little bit differently. You can either go through straight or you can put them across like that. It makes no difference. All that matters is it's holding the breeching up. And I like where this is. At least it looks really good right now because it's kind of right in the middle of the widest part of his behind there. So now I'm pulling back on this. Oh, I think we got too much room there. A lot of times when you adjust one thing, you got to adjust another thing. I'm going to change something else here too. When I fasten this like this, the buckle is against the horse. I don't want the buckle against the horse, but I can change that. Got my pokey thing away. The buckle's away from the horse. I'm going to go through my footman loop. And I'd like to go from down and keep it down. And then I'm going to wrap it around 2 times. We might need to do more, but 2 times to start. And I slip it underneath. The reason I do that is because that alone kind of holds it in place. And it's snug and pretty and, all those things. Okay, I'll go over and do this one. Scott, you were being such a good pony. Not every little guy is going to be this patient with this. Make sure that's footman loop. If your cart doesn't have a footman loop, you can actually buy them. They aren't called footman loops at the hardware store. I don't know what they're called, but you can buy them. And you can, if you have wooden shafts, you can screw them in. If you have metal shafts, it's a little harder, but it can be done. We have a guy down the road who does metal things for our carts. Okay, now that's better. But to make sure it's better, I'm going to put the cart in draft by pulling back. It's still a little loose, but I can't change it without, I could do another loop here, and then I could put this on one of these other holes, but that's fine for now. Okay, and I can get my finger underneath the saddle here, so that's good. All righty. So this driver has her helmet. Oh, you're the driver.
Yes. Sorry, I'll be the header.
Okay, so this driver's got her helmet, her jeans, her boots, those are all good. And she's hanging on to the reins when she gets in, so that if the horse decided to go forward, she could have some chance of making it better. Like, you know, not letting him. It's like when you get on a horse with the saddle, you don't want him taken off as soon as you swing your leg over. Okay, so let's look at this whip.
We want to check the whip?
Yeah,
Okay.
So put your arms where you would, yeah, probably not that far out.
Bend a bit.
Bend your elbows a little bit. Give them a little more rein, bend your elbows a little bit. You kind of want your arms here, and the reason is so that you have some mobility. Now, you don't want them back here, because if you had to stop your horse, there's nowhere to go. Okay, so we're going to put the whip down. Goes to there. She's got some room on her handle, so she can move her hand, but that goes there. And this goes, I'll do it over on this side. This goes to the point of the shoulder, so that's appropriate length whip. Okay, now I'm also going to check the balance. This is pretty good. And I'm going to slide my finger under here, and I can get my finger under there without it being pinched. Some saddles have a metal thing in the middle, and you can actually push them together a little bit to give a little more room there. I don't know if this one does.
No.
It's hard, very hard to do. Okay, so that's it. Looks appropriately hitched. I like where her collar is on the neck, below the esophagus and above the point of the shoulder. Now this cart is more of a show cart, and underneath her seat she has an elliptical spring, which will give it a little better ride. Wooden shafts also give a little better ride. There's different kinds of springs and so forth that you can use. The elliptical is better than the little springs under the seat like Eden has on her cart over there. But basically, unless you're going over hill and dell, it's all good.
I know, sorry.
Come all the way up. We can walk
Sitting
down.
on 'em. I keep a hair tie on here in case when I'm doing my event. Now, if there's an emergency, you have them.
And this will just pull off.
Yep. Yeah.
You don't want something too tight. Another thing that people will do is they'll, and I like that better than sitting on the reins. Oh, I see. Go ahead and hang on to your whip. I'm taking your reins from you, girl. Okay, go ahead and hang on to your reins again. Some people, instead of doing that,
How do you take a picture without it?
put this around their little finger like that to hold their reins. I find that obnoxious. Some people like it better. It's up to you. I just like to keep the reins from getting tangled in my feet, so when I fall out of the cart, I don't really fall out of the cart. And I think that's, I don't know if they wanted to do anything else.
Connected reins. In 4-H, we're required to have connected reins.
Ah, yes. Connected reins are really, I do that too. Some people don't. But the point of having a connected rein is if you drop one of the reins, the other rein isn't going to go dragging behind you, and there's some hope that you get a hold of it again. And this has got a swivel on it, which is kind of nice. Certainly not necessary, but it swivels here, which can help you to keep your reins straight, not all curly all the way down.
Marcia, is there a difference between the tires being rubber versus
Okay, yeah.
wooden?
These tires are pneumatic tires, and these are spoked wheels. This is a heavy-duty spoked wheel, which I like if you're going to use a spoked wheel. Bicycle tires are not okay because there's too much torque on them and they can pancake, and it's not good. But the problem with pneumatic tires, they are allowed in most situations, is that because they're pneumatic, they can blow or just go flat. And they're not traditional. But I'll go show, now we'll show, I've got tires up here that are different. Her tires are the same. They're also a heavy duty spoke with a pneumatic tire. Pneumatic tires can have that no flat stuff put in them, which helps. I've had my pneumatic tires sometimes foam filled, which makes them heavier. Les Schwab would do that for me. Makes them heavier, but they no longer have any issues. So these tires are hard rubber, and these are heavy duty tube spokes, and it's a metal, very, very sturdy. However, they're a little heavier. They're not usually used in the show ring. They're used for more outside type competitions. This cart also has a different kind of spring system. It's got airbags.
Oh,
they're like motorcycle airbags,
right? Yeah.
And so it's a very smooth ride. This one has got an elliptical spring. Some of them have torsion. They call it torsion axles. So there's different ways of getting your cart to not bounce so much. But in the show ring, none of that's really necessary. Now, on this cart, I made what I call butt blockers, also known as bolsters. When I sit here and I'm going around a corner fast, if I didn't have them, I would tend to slide to one side of the cart. And the side that you slide to is not the side that you want to slide to. It will unbalance the cart. So these just keep me in the center of the cart, and I'm not sliding around. Some carts are made with special seats in the middle so that you can't slide. In the show ring, 4-H, unless you don't have to worry about that. That's more if I'm pretending I'm doing, barrel races or going around obstacles fast. Oh, and this is a different kind of connector. This is the quick release connector that would fit onto the metal rings that on the harness that we just looked at on the traces. And so they would just fit on this, and then, see if I can do this. They fit on like that. And then in an emergency, it's freed up. So it makes it easier to unhitch.